She wants a crop top with that meathead logo on it.
I do. That's how you're going to get the girls.
So I looked up crop top, and I was actually sorry that I did.
Some of them are longer than others. We don't need like midriff showing.
Right.
It's just,
but that's what everything showed me.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Hey, you remember that that business name Ben had? Like it, touch it, feel it.
Feel it.
Is that what? Feel it.
Feel it, need it, want it.
Feel it, need it, want it. Something like. Did you see he changed his name?
Yeah, it's the Strio.
Strio or Stria. Strio.
Yeah,
it's more Google friendly. Let's put it that way.
for sure.
Crop tops aren't Google friendly.
Well, I saw that he changed the name because he's the one that made the made up sign.
Okay,
which is really cool.
Yeah,
he does nice work. I saw that he had changed the business name, and I went into the comments, and I'm like, well, it's definitely safer to Google that than your previous name.
Yeah, there's some things you have to be.
Are we rolling?
G-rated.
Oh, we are rolling. Okay. Well, before we get into all this, what's up for the new year? How was recovery? Recovery road.
Recovery is awesome. My back is better. And I was thinking a lot, and this kind of goes into like the train for life situation. Mm-hmm. I had this moment of like, kind of like an I made it moment, and not in the usual sense of like, finishing the Margie duathlon or doing my first run post back injury. It was not thinking twice about carrying my son to bed. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was a big part of like when you have, my youngest is 6.
Right.
And we were reading in bed one night and he got tired, and I just was like, picked him up and carried him to bed. And it was like, that to me is like, when I don't have to worry about my back doing those like everyday things. And I was like, that's really like, yes, I've dedicated 2026 to the distance of 50. But like
50 what?
50, a lot of things. I am skiing the 50K No Caymanon in like a week, 2 weeks. I will do the 40 Crusher EX with some friends. That'll probably be 50 miles, right?
The Noke is 50K, right?
Yeah, 51K.
Okay.
Yep.
51K.
And then I'm running the Market Trail 50. So I'll be running my first ultra marathon. And then the Margie 50 with Arthur and Jordan.
How much running are you actually going to do in that ultra?
It depends. Depends on how I feel. I'll probably set my sights on running all of the flats, power hiking the steep inclines and the descents. And depending on how things go, like what life brings between now and then, it has a really generous time cutoff. Mm-hmm. So I think it's something that I could, if I couldn't run, I think I could power hike the whole thing as long as I just kept moving forward.
Cool.
Yeah.
The injury, when you had it, when did you sustain that originally?
The end of June.
So end of June. And that was a back injury.
Yep.
Right. And then give the Cliff Note version of getting from there to now.
Yeah.
Because you're back in the gym?
Yes. Yep. Not in the same way that I thought it would be, but the way that is good for me right now.
Sure. Because you're back in the gym.
It's mean I'm back in the gym.
Which is a great start.
Yep. Absolutely. A lot of second opinions, a lot of advocating for myself to get imaging, to get the support that I needed. Recovery went really well, like June to the end of August. And then my back got bad on a training ride. And that was when I pulled the plug on Margie. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of September and October, I took completely off.
Was the training ride trail riding or gravel riding? What were you doing?
It was just easy peasy, like dropped Lars off at 906 Adventure Team and went out for a ride. And I do think the thing that kind of aggravated it was intending to climb in all like the low gears. So seated climb, low gears. So it was like lots of resistance seated. And I think like my L4, L5, it just was like the right stressor to kind of send everything down, like all the nerve stuff down my right leg.
Gotcha.
So did absolutely nothing from September, October. Didn't travel like I pretty much was. Yeah, life was very different. I had 2 back injections, and asked for a second opinion on PT. So I had to stop physical therapy altogether because the athletic approach to PT was actually causing more pain post.
So you went to therapy and were in more pain.
We're in more pain. Yep. And I had been going to PT since beginning of July. So since I had gotten my imaging and realized my injury and things like that.
This was, remind me, was it a tear?
I had a bulging L2, L3, L4, L5, and an annular tear in my L5.
And you still do.
And I still do, yes.
Because they didn't go in and change it.
Right. They didn't. No.
So there was a non-surgical.
Yep, non-surgical. I did have a repeat MRI done in October just to make sure to rule out any like further injury, herniation, anything like that. And my MRI was exactly the same. So one of the things that was interesting is like my symptoms and my pain level didn't really, like a lot of people told me, professionals were like, hey, Dawn, like there's lots of people who have bulging discs and they're not experiencing the symptoms that you are. So there was a lot of just like trusting the symptoms I was having and really trying to think through like, what do I know about my body and how can I move forward?
Yeah. What restrictions did they put on you?
Nothing really, which was kind of annoying. I've not been a good rule follower, and I've learned that like when it comes to this injury stuff, like you really have to listen to the professionals that you're like working with. But no one really, I think I shared this with you, like nobody wanted to tell me like how to build back or what I could get, you know, where I could go from here. And it's like, well, I started to feel like someone who doesn't do things. Like I started not to feel like myself. And that was hard. Like that was probably the worst part about it. And like I said, like not being able to just like pick up my kids and do the things that I'm used to doing. And so it just got to the point where I was like, is there something else going on here? And what other avenues or approaches could I take to maybe help heal this injury that I'm not already trying?
When you say that you weren't feeling like yourself, how much of that was physical and how much of that was emotional?
I think it would be 100% emotional because I still am myself. I still had a really great, like if I look back on memories of September and October and this fall, even the last 6 months, I really have a full life, even outside of sport. But that gives me, like in the work that I do and all the hats that I wear, I'm really good at taking time to myself when I can get outdoors. And I'm not really great about taking time for myself when it means like sitting and reading or knitting or doing anything that's really like stagnant, right? That like kind of like people have called it like moving meditation. And I guess it's not something that I really feel like I practice, but you do realize how much you miss just being out in nature and quiet. And
well, if you're used to moving.
Yeah.
And then you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also found that like the amount of rest that I had, like that was a little bit annoying. I was trying to like be patient with myself, but my screen time went way up. Like there's a lot of things that you're just like, you know, yes, I could read books. Yes, I could knit, but like sometimes positional stuff, like when I had to rest, it was like, and you can only sleep so much, right? Like you can do so much. And so that was just something that it was just kind of like, well, this doesn't mean I'm lazy or, you know, I still don't have those aspirations. It's just where I'm at right now, you know?
And the injuries you had, if I remember correctly, they didn't warrant surgery.
Correct.
Right.
Yep. Because I got to a point in like early November, mid-November, that if there was something that would have been fixed, I would have had surgery. I was just
ready to be over it.
I was ready to be over it. And luckily my doctor's not one to recommend surgery when it's not warranted. And
which is good.
Yep. And so that was when I made a move to working with a different physical therapist, one who had more of like a Pilates-based approach. So really focusing more on like pressure management with bracing and breathing and kind of identifying that I kind of had a movement pattern issue that was contributing to some like chronic lower back pain or some lingering lower back pain would probably be the better term for it.
Interesting. So the year of 50.
Yeah, the year of 50. But I'm not turning 50. I just turned 40. So
Right.
No shade to anyone who is turning 50 this year. So
good.
Yeah, I also just big dumb goals, you know?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you just got to put it out there. And I saw today I was going to kind of fair weather the 50K for the No Cayman on. And I looked back at pictures when I did it last. in 2018, and I had, Arthur and Titus were little, like 2.5 and 1 or something like that, 2 and 1. And I did it in 3.5 hours. And I was like, that's not that long. 3.5,
It's not bad.
And
just getting warmed up.
yeah, just getting warmed up. And so I saw today that like they only had, couple of spots left in the last wave for the 50K freestyle, and signed up. So
It's good. You know what? They're going to have a good year.
It's looking good.
Yeah, because they've struggled with snow the last couple of 2-3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fun to get back to some of that stuff. Like I don't fat bike yet, and I've done it. I don't have my own fat bike, but
Have you?
I have, like, I've never owned a bike. I've like demoed bikes and borrowed bikes for like EX events and things like that.
Gotcha.
But it's hard when you, like, I really love skiing. And so
Yeah. You only have so much time.
only have so much time.
Well, and money,
Yeah, that too.
especially when you have kids at home
Yeah.
who also need equipment
Well,
and things.
luckily the older two are like they're the same size or bigger
Gotcha.
shoes than me. And then they
Right.
flex into the weight of my skis. So it's nice because I have like 4 pairs of skis. So now that's really like, I can justify it, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I like it. So what's with the bag of meat here?
all right. So my husband, Jordan, gifted me some carnivore snacks for Christmas. I had never heard of them, but I opened up, this one is the bison slider. I also have New York strip, brisket, ribeye, and pork loin.
Nice.
I opened up the New York strip, and I think, for legal purposes, this is not factual. I feel like there's crack in this product. Like, it's so good. And all it is like, it's not jerky. All it is meat and salt.
Nice.
Yeah. And so we have
Where'd
lots
he
of-
find it?
online. He said, I think it was they
What was he
advertised-
Googling to come across that?
He was listening to the Rogan podcast.
How was it?
Yeah. So apparently they're a sponsor.
Oh.
So yeah. So he said,
So from Joe Rogan's Bag of Tricks. You look like a Rogan watcher.
so he was like, this will help you with your protein goals. And
Yeah, it will.
yeah,
It's legit.
and it's delicious. And there's also lots of questions today about like stuff that's light, stuff that's nutrient dense. Like, how do I still get my protein in? And granted, like, it is expensive. Again, it was a gift. But he was like, you are the only reason I would spend this kind of money on something like that. So maybe we'll be addicted now and we'll just have carnivore snacks everywhere. But
Cool.
it's delicious.
Carnivore snacks.
Do you want to try some?
Sure. I mean, I'm not going to say no to meat.
Have you ever eaten on the podcast?
I don't think so. We've drank.
Well, yeah. You know I'm not doing that.
Well, we're not going to like chase the
Like,
bison
why does
with.
it look like a chip?
Oh, it looks
You
like
want one?
pepperoni.
I know. Don't chew into the mic.
That's pretty good. It is like a buffalo chip. No, does this have creatine in it?
No. You gotta double fist like the creatine gummy and like the buffalo chip.
Yeah, that's interesting. It is good. Mm-hmm. It tastes clean. Really does. That's solid. That's a solid product.
The New York strip is
Not what I was expecting.
No, it's like borderline potato chip.
Yeah. Weird.
on the back of the bag. It says refrigerate, like if eat within 3 days, the bag, eat within 3 days or refrigerate. And at first I thought, I'm like, that's an interesting like recommendation. And then when I first tried the New York strip one, excuse me, I was like, oh, there will be no need to refrigerate this bag. It's going to be gone in 3
Yeah.
days. So
How many ounces is that? Does it say 8 on the bag? What's on the front there? On the bottom?
5.
Oh, 5. Eek. Let's talk about the questions. So
I know, right?
I think I had reached out to you, right?
Yep.
And I thought just, with it being the first of the year, start of a new year, might be a good time to put out some feelers to see if people out there have questions
Yeah.
on nutrition, et cetera, or just whatever questions they wanted to ask you.
Right.
What's your takeaway from what you? I haven't reviewed them in great detail, but
Yeah.
what's your takeaway from looking through it?
Yeah, there's lots.
What was there a common theme?
I would say the majority of the questions were event specific, and some of them do have tie-ins to training. Like obviously, there's that crossover.
Okay.
But a lot of them were very event specific, which I think is great because, as I find, if one person has a question, there's got to be probably at least 10 or 20 people out there that have asked themselves the same question.
For sure.
And then the other questions, which there's probably like a handful, like half a dozen, that I called them enhanced life conditions, and really asking like specific things like weight loss, electrolytes, even people with specific autoimmune diseases. And it really kind of like made me excited to think about like all the different things that folks are bringing with them when they show up to these events.
Yeah.
And it really also just shows the importance of knowing and trusting your body and what you need, and that kind of goes along into when we're talking about like the required gear for races, like say Polar Ultra, knowing how to use that equipment. And the same thing goes with your nutrition plan, because you could plan on an electrolyte supplement or, something like that. But have you really used those products? Have you worked it into different scenarios and situations?
Well, we've talked about this in the past. And that was another part of the reason why I thought getting this done in January was important. If they're in like where they're going to start coming in the prime time of the year where they're training and,
Yep.
Preparing for, Polar rolls upon us, but Crusher and Margie, they're a long ways out. They got a ways to go.
Yep.
You got to actually train with your nutrition.
Yep.
To find out if it's going to work instead of finding out on the day of the event.
Yeah.
Oh shit, this doesn't work.
And that timeline is different, and we'll get into that with some of the different events. Like if someone's looking at losing weight or body composition changes, or if somebody's looking at, a dietary change based on a health diagnosis, they're going to need some time to work out those kinks and kind of reprogram things and kind of get back to their like nutritional baseline, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And not only from an intake standpoint, but also from how they feel, how they recover from workouts, when can they push their body? When do they need to fuel their body? And so I think obviously January gets a lot of, we're hearing things.
I thought a phone rang.
Sounded like a train.
Weird.
Hallucinating already.
Hallucinating.
But maybe there's something.
It's probably from the bison.
We're out in the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
So.
Well, let's dive into the questions. I'm going to ask the first question.
Okay.
And you know what? If through the course of the podcast, if anybody has other questions, they can just reach out to you, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Cool. Let's see. Scott asked, would taking creatine help with any of the 906 events?
Yep. Yes. That's an obvious yes. There's lots of evidence as far as like the benefit. I mean, one of the main benefits with creatine is its role in strength building. Mm. Another thing that's we've found a lot more research on, or research studies have kind of been highlighting the cognitive benefits. So it's also helpful for people who are experiencing recovery from a concussion.
Yep.
And then also kind of into the elderly years, I love it. Like we have athletes we have folks who are doing these events who are well into their 60s and 70s. And so there's a lot of like early onset Alzheimer's and some like dementia and things like that creatine has also been really helpful for.
What's the knock on it?
Well, I think we talked about this briefly in one of the previous podcasts, is from a vanity perspective, that like potential weight gain with supplementation. One thing that we've kind of gotten more up-to-date research on in females who are taking creatine is that they can actually they can get the same strength benefits from creatine at a lower daily dose. So instead of the 3 grams.
I just read something on that.
Yeah, instead of 3 grams a day, females can do, anywhere between 3 and 5 grams. And that can also help alleviate that potential side effect of weight gain.
Is there any reason somebody wouldn't take it?
I can't think of any. The only one, and I can't think of any that would come to mind, is there are such things as like nutrient or supplement medication interactions. So obviously it's anytime you're taking a supplement, especially if you're taking, medications and things like that, it's good to make sure that there aren't any things that are going to kind of conflict with one another.
Yeah. All right. That's pretty straightforward. I thought that would be a fairly short one.
Yeah.
I cannot find a person out there that gives a valid reason to not take creatine.
Yeah. Anytime someone has an argument for a negative against taking creatine, they are confusing creatine with creatinine.
Yeah, right.
And they're not the same thing.
Right.
Which is a byproduct
Of protein.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's also a measure we measure in our blood to assess kidney function.
Right.
But they are two different things.
Yeah. The one thing that I've heard or I've read through my journey through creatine is hydrations.
Yep.
Super important.
Yeah. I think the knock was potential impact on kidney function.
Yeah.
And then with any supplement, right, we also look into like cost,
Yeah.
right? Because the ones that are Informed Sport, sort of third party tested, Informed per Sport, NSF certified, you're going to have to pay for them, right?
Right.
And so sometimes that can be, and with creatine, the benefits are from consistent intake. It's not something that you're like, oh, I want to lift heavy today, I'm going to just take it today. It's something that you have to commit to taking regularly.
Yeah. Consistency.
Yeah.
Here's a good one from Blake. I actually like the way he positioned this one. Is it worth it to buy, in parentheses, often expensive, sports nutrition items like honey stingers, scratch, tailwind goo, etc.? What do these types of things tend to have in them that you can't get from something else sugary like a candy bar or fruit snacks?
Yeah, I love
Blake's going hard on the brands.
I love it. When I added that question just came in
Did it?
like as I was wrapping things up and printing these out. What do these things have in them that can't be found in candy bars or fruit snacks? And the answer is absolutely nothing. They are.
Ooh,
I know.
shots fired.
Shots fired. And so much to the fact that when I'm working with like middle school and high school athletes, I also will give them, references that have foods that are high in carbohydrate that you can buy at the grocery store, that you don't need to go and order online or buy at a specialty store. So for instance, like if we took, any type of energy chew, whether it's honey stinger or scratch or whatever, and we compare that to even like a store brand fruit snack, when we look at serving size, the carbohydrate content is going to be the same. Now, you have some of those specialty items that maybe have more sodium in them. And so if someone is like a really salt heavy sweater, that may be a benefit, but that's going to be like a unicorn situation.
Right.
But you can also get that from, choosing foods like Cheez-Its or pretzels, like eating a carb-rich food that has salt in it, or, spending your money on like an electrolyte supplement versus all the nutrition products.
Do you think that part of the allure to this stuff is convenience?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I mean, that's got to be part of it. Because, like, I'm looking at the list, if you're going to pull Scratch out or Tailwind off the list, now you've got to put some time into wrapping your head around how are you going to address what that was giving you.
Yep.
Right? And there's just a lot of people that are not going to do that.
Yeah. And, if I think about, like, if we even parse it out a little bit deeper into some of the, like, the high carb fuels, I find that those really give you, in the cold environment, like Polar Ultra, where you're not as likely to be thirsty because of the temps, that when your bottle has carbs and electrolytes and fuels, you're killing 3 birds with 1 stone. And being efficient, especially on those long self-supported events, that's the benefit I find. And like you said, the convenience of it.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of products out there that you can find at a grocery store that you can pack with you. But sometimes it takes up more space. So not only is it convenient, but it also might be more like carbohydrate dense. Like if we compare like a gel to like an apple, and then also like some of those real foods also are going to be higher in fiber, which can potentially wreak havoc on things.
I got to believe that for a lot of people, there's like that sports nutrition journey that they would go through as they come into something. Like when I first started getting into cycling, it seemed like, the gels and the goos and the supplements, they're all very front and center. They're kind of pushed at you like, hey, if you're going to do this, you need to use this to do that. And I think that's partially why as you come in, that's why everybody kind of goes through that phase.
Yeah.
The only good thing to do with a goo is to throw it.
Yeah.
As far away from you as possible.
Yep.
But, I've been there. I used them. They're fucking terrible.
Yep.
But, some of it, I think you got to just figure out through all of it. I mean, Blake's question is great.
Yeah.
You could probably do a hybrid. Use some of the stuff and not use some of the stuff and cross-utilize it with real food.
And I would say, too, I absolutely agree. You can do a hybrid, and some people are leaning heavier on the real foods. Some people are really leaning heavier on the sports nutrition side of things. And there's no right or wrong way. It's just figuring out and trusting like what works for you.
That's the important part, is what works for you. Because, you got Scratch on there, you got Tailwind. We can say Carbo Rocket.
Yep.
You can say Hammer. Everybody reacts different to those products.
Mm-hmm.
I had great luck with Carbo Rocket, but not everybody does.
Right. And
So.
like you said, I remember when Scratch Super High Carb came out. I've been using that since it came out. And I remember you being like, hey, I really like Scratch, I'm enticed to try it.
Mm-hmm.
But Carbo Rocket has worked for me. And I was like, well, if it's
It's like if it ain't broke,
don't
don't fix it.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to nutrition on the bike, because when nutrition on the bike is broken, it's a dark place.
It's a dark place.
Well, whether you're on a bike or just running.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That's a great question. What about here from Jenny? I'm slightly over 50 and have no desire to consume gels. I hear you, Jenny. Through bike races or adventure races, is it possible to eat real food and get the same results?
Yeah. And that's, we can
question.
kind of tail that in there too. But for Jenny, she's asking too about that real food piece, which I feel like reading between the lines was also part of Blake's question, right? Like, do we really need these sports nutrition products? Can we get them from, a sugar containing, more like, I don't want to say junk food, but like, right, and that's the same. And to kind of tie in Jenny's question with the real food aspect is, when I think about real food, we're thinking about like, if you're eating a burrito or a sandwich or, say like ramen, or if you're stopping at a support station and somebody has grilled cheese. And the thing is that the carbs from those sports nutrition products, like Blake's question mentioned, and all of the, breads and fruits and things like that, like they're all carbs. Yeah. And again, some of them might have a little more, fat or fiber. A lot of the sports nutrition products take those things out, right? Mm-hmm. They're really able to kind of scientifically make it so that it's easier to digest, in theory. But that doesn't mean that everyone tolerates those things well.
Right. Let me follow that up, because it's, actually what she asked, Ray kind of built off of it.
Yeah.
So what specific foods and snacks do you suggest for solid foods to eat during long events? And what cadence of eating is ideal to avoid upset stomach, digestive issues, i.e. a small snack every hour or a larger snack every other hour?
Yeah. Unfortunately for Ray, it gets a little bit more number specific than like large snack, small snack.
Right.
And we'll start with like the, larger snack or meal, as I would say, because that's kind of how people usually think about real food in the first place. Is I often recommend whenever you are riding or moving through 2 meal times, that's a time where you need to plan for some real food once you're moving into that second meal hour.
Yeah.
And so
that makes sense.
That could include, I have some folks who bring beef jerky and like peanut butter, like cracker sandwiches, or some people will bring like a turkey sandwich or, some other things that they're actually bringing with them. Mm-hmm. I actually made a pizza roll out of this Feed Zone portable cookbook for my first crusher. And I had it in my like burrito bag and ate it cold, and it was delicious. But it was something that I had made and tried and brought with me on a ride. And so there's lots of people who will bring like cold pizza. Like it could really be whatever you can tolerate.
Right.
You just want to try to have it, before or during a training ride if possible. And so it can be helpful to think about in foods that, you like, foods that are going to give you a good amount of carbs and still some fat and protein. If you lean too heavy on the fat and the protein, depending on the intensity of your effort after that meal, may depend on you having an upset stomach or not.
Yeah.
So for instance, like when I left Lake and Inland, when I did the Crusher 100 mass start, there's all that like rock gravel or garden rocks, I want to call it.
Yeah.
On the, I think it's like the Iron Heritage Trail.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like on a gravel bike, right? And you're just like bouncing all around. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna throw up. I actually like thought that like, did I get food poisoning? Or I was worried I was like coming down with something, but there wasn't anything wrong with the food that I ate. It was just the terrain that I was experiencing after that stop.
This kind of ties into what you're talking about right now. James had asked, what's the difference in benefits between high carb and high fat race day fuels?
Yeah. There's a lot of, I think the benefits of high carb have really been dialed home if people have listened to the other 2 episodes that we've talked about. And especially if you look at any high carb, like drink mixes, like Carbo Rocket or Scratch Labs, the one kind of what we see with like the high fat race day fuels, to my knowledge, there isn't anything out there that you could like go and buy and like put in your bottle. And the thing that we worry with that, there's been a big kind of trend in like the whole concept of an athlete being fat adapted. And that's a very genetic specific situation.
Yeah.
And it's not something that you can just do on race day.
Is that keto?
Well, the idea is that if you're fat adapted, that you have more energy on your body in fat or adipose tissue than you do in carbohydrates or muscle glycogen. And so if you can train your body to tap into those adipose tissues or fat stores, you should be able to essentially fuel the marketing gimmick is you should be able to fuel yourself forever and not have to eat anything. But that's just kind of like the bold letter of the statement. And there's a lot of fine print and individuality in there.
It makes me wonder, how the hell did caveman get here? I mean, they weren't talking keto and eating potato chip bison.
Opportunist.
Yeah. And so for some people, like I see, like I don't necessarily know of any like high fat race day fuels, but I might see people who are utilizing like, squeezable peanut butters, or they're doing like, higher fat proteins. Mm-hmm. They're doing nuts and things like that. And I like, again, just going back to like the real food and the sports nutrition products, I like to do a hybrid. I like to sprinkle in some sources of protein, some sources of fat, get in some sodium, some different texture foods, so that if all of a sudden everything you're eating just sounds horrible, you have some options.
Did you say you're not aware, or do you not have a high fat race day fuel that you recommend?
No, I don't know of any.
Okay. I wonder where that came from. James, what are you talking about, brother?
It's fine. Maybe there's something new that I'm not.
Oh, I'll hear from him. He'll watch this at some point. We'll hear from him. He will answer the question.
Did you like how he said F you?
Oh, yeah, I saw that. I thought you did that. I didn't think
he
James
did
would never say that.
I copied it. Oh, you think I would?
Oh, I know you would. We're going to go back to Ray here under electrolytes.
Ray had a lot of good questions.
He's got a lot of questions. Goddamn, Ray, you got a lot on your mind.
He does.
What is the best way to figure out how much salt electrolytes are needed for different race conditions, i.e., 10-degree day at Polar Roll versus a hot year at Margie or Crusher that can be 80 degrees?
Yeah.
I mean, to me, some of it seems like there's got to be a sweat correlation in this, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
But just curious out of that, this isn't just weather. I mean, also fitness has to play into this, because what he might be riding Z2 in, another person might be Z4 in side by side with him.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
All right, go ahead. Take
Absolutely. So electrolytes, like you mentioned, are very much set on, sweat rate, composition of sweat. And if you're a real numbers kind of guy or gal, having a sweat test done is helpful.
And they're real?
Yeah, they are real.
And once you have a test done like that, like what's the likelihood your body's going to change and that number is going to change?
Not super likely unless you're a female and go through menopause. Some of those like hormonal changes can.
You guys, you always pull out the menopause card.
I'm sorry.
We got to come up with something. We got to like invent it.
You don't want it.
I'm not touching that.
You don't want it.
Wuss.
The favorite saying in my house is men could never.
Men could never.
Men could never. I live with all boys.
Right.
It's fine. But
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Anyway, continue with the
So yes,
the
so there
menopause
might be
analogy.
situations like pregnancy, like hormone changes that could affect sweat rate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
More than likely, you are going to have a very similar sweat rate or sweat composition, especially if you're testing someone as an athlete.
If you lose a bunch of weight and just get into like elite fitness,
Yeah, like
could your test not change?
It could and it could not, right? Especially if there's a lot of like research behind like a set point theory, which kind of means like when you're born, you have this set point weight that your body will want you to be at.
Sure.
So say if you are making fitness or nutrition related changes to be drastically below that set point weight or above,
Yep.
that's going to impact that. The other thing that would be different is that kids and teenagers are going to, if you do a sweat test when you're 12, it's going to be different when you're 40.
Naturally.
Yep. But I would say for most adults, unless you go through some big physical or like timeline life cycle change, it's not going to change significantly.
Okay.
And most well done sweat tests, like if you work with a dietitian and have a sweat test done, they're going to give you those parameters as far as like, this is your like normal environment recommendations, heat and humidity, intensity. This is how you would make those adjustments. And one of the things that's really interesting is that from polar roll, where it might be 10 degrees, to Margie, where it might be 80 degrees, your fluid and electrolyte needs aren't as different as one would think. What changes is your perception of what you need. When you are dressed in 5 layers and doing the polar roll ultra like last year and it's cold outside and you are less thirsty and you don't see the beads of sweat coming off of you, you have that perception that you're not sweating that much.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Your difference between those 2 days may only be a 10% different. It may be a 25% difference. But I think some people think those two situations are going to be extreme, but it's your body that's still moving. So that's...
What's so short of a sweat test?
Yeah.
What's the best way to figure this out?
Trial and error.
Yeah.
Yep. So I always say if someone is, we have some very broad recommendations for fluid during movement, and that's 6 to 8 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes of just, you could just do plain water, but then adding that electrolyte piece. If someone identifies as a heavy sweater, we oftentimes will start them off with the recommendation of 1 gram or 1,000 milligrams of sodium every hour and starting at that point. And so if they have, still have experienced cramping at that rate, then they're going to want to increase it.
What if you take in way more than you're really getting rid of? What happens?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's going to depend on a lot of different things,
Worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario with fluid, if you're taking in too much, you could get something called hyponatremia, where you flush all of the sodium out of your bloodstream. And that can result in death. So that's not great. So that's why kind of using that baseline, most people who have experienced hyponatremia that has been fatal, there's been studies that have, case studies that have been shown, like people doing the Boston Marathon. And the Boston Marathon has an aid station every mile. Well, no one running the marathon needs to drink every single mile. But sometimes you have folks who, this might be their first marathon because they donated to charity in order to get a spot, or they fundraised. And they're coming into the situation thinking the water is there, I need to drink it. And then, they end up in a fatal hyponatremic situation. Yeah.
Well.
And so, on the other hand, obviously, if we have folks who, need to watch their sodium for whatever reason, say they have, kidney issues or heart issues, that would be more the concern with kind of like excess sodium.
Yeah, I was going to ask that.
Because the body your kidneys do a really good job at excreting, the extra, but obviously it's more effort and cost on you. Like say if you are using a hydration product, going back to like Blake's question, right? Like if you're using an electrolyte product and you're taking too much of it, that's going to be costly, right? If you're just peeing it out.
Yeah. Okay. Trial and error.
Right.
Valerie asked the question everybody wants an answer to. When doing long events, how do you manage to get enough food in when you're sick of eating?
When you are sick of eating, it is some type, I usually call mine emotional support candy. That's what I usually bring. So bring a carbohydrate source that you could eat even like after a big old second helping of Thanksgiving dinner, So for some people it's Cheez-Its, for some people it's Coke, but making sure that you have something on you at all times. And sometimes you might get through the race or the event or the ride or the run or the hike and not use that thing. But yeah, emotional support, carbohydrates.
Do you ever get to the point where you don't want to eat?
Yeah, I'm not a big eater.
On the bike?
Yeah, I don't eat. I mean, I do when I like. It's kind of feast or famine for me. I've gotten better with just taking and having a handful of a snack here and there.
Yeah.
But I'm more of a sit down for a meal kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And right, if people have like support crews that are meeting them, they can really plan for that. And I have clients that kind of fall into that same category where they're like, hey, I have people meeting with me. And the cool thing is if you get in, say, I don't know, 60 or 90 grams of carb in that meal where you're sitting down, depending on your intensity and your duration of your ride or run, like that could be 3 hours, and then if you're filling that in between with like handfuls here, handfuls there, you have something little in your bottle, like it could work.
I don't want to forget to ask this. What carb mix ratio do you recommend for maltodextrin to fructose?
Yeah, it's interesting. So Ray also included this. So the 2-to-1 and the 1-to-0.8 are actually both recommended. So the difference, it's funny because the difference is like 80 grams of maltose to 40 grams of fructose. That would be like the 1-to-0.8, or like the 2-to-1 is like 60-30. And so both of those mixes are recommended. And I'm guessing where he saw these, and Ray, you can chime in and correct me if I'm wrong. A lot of these sports nutrition companies are marketing that.
Sure.
Because we've had so much focus on that 90 to 120 grams of carbohydrate per hour recommendation. When we're getting carbohydrate intake rates up above 90 grams, that's where the ratio comes into importance. Because from a physiological factor, your body can only digest certain types of sugars at a certain rate. And so by kind of dividing the amount of the types of sugars you're getting allows you to absorb them both and then absorb higher amounts of carbohydrate per hour.
Gotcha.
I know, right?
You're right. It's getting into the weeds.
Probably more than you wanted to know about sugar ratios and things like that.
Yeah, I've never dug this deep.
But the thing is, like, you could take a product that is like 2-to-1, and if you take all the products that are 2-to-1, like maltose to fructose, you may only tolerate one of those.
Yeah.
And so I think it's great, like if you are experiencing GI symptoms, to really kind of see like, well, are there any reasons why I might not be tolerating this? Or is it just that I haven't tried it enough? Is my intensity different today? Was my fueling different heading into the ride or run that I'm doing? So
could very much be it.
Yeah.
Here's another one for Ray. I'm curious what you say to this. So for larger athletes who need 120 grams plus carbs per hour, even for low zone 2 rides like the Trilogy events, how do you suggest the carb intake is split up? Solids versus liquid carbs or gels?
Yeah. And a lot of that, depending on the distance, the longer the distance and the type of support you have, it's going to depend on what can you carry, either on your body or on your bike. right? Because we could say solids, but like, let's say the point to point, for example, like how many athletes left with 5 days of nutrition in all real food?
I can't think of one.
Exactly. And so sometimes you have to kind of like,
Ed left with nothing. He was almost naked.
Ed had negative nutrition.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He was going to forage in the forest.
Yep. And so I think it's important to think about, for instance, like if we think about liquid carbs, like I think of Carbo Rocket, Scratch, even Tailwind. You can't find those at a gas station in the Upper Peninsula.
Right.
So if you are using those or any of the electrolyte products that you're using, you need to bring those with you. So then the things that you can't get along the way would be my first priority. And you would want to plan those, you know, looking at, okay, where can I stop, right? Like, where am I going to get a resupply? And getting the foods that are available at those restaurants or gas stations. And I would train in that fashion. So if you're spending your first day a little more reliant on real food, and then your second day, because you don't have a resupply, you're relying a little bit more on liquid carbs, I would mirror that in my training session. If I had an 8-hour session, I would do, you know, whatever, 4 and 4, kind of do like, you know, real food for 6 hours and then do, you know, try to do that carb mix for the last 2 hours and see how does that sit with you.
So he's asking what you suggest is a carb intake to split up, you know, between solids and liquids and gels, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's very much, I would think, personal preference.
It is.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Figuring out what works for you.
Yeah.
I know when I was training on the bike a lot, I would do just sometimes weird shit, like just fill 2 bottles of water, you know, for like a 4 or 5 hour ride. And I'd have drink mix, Carbo Rocket in it, but no food.
Yeah.
So the only food I could eat was the food I could find at C-stores.
Yeah.
Just to see how it went.
Yeah.
And pizza was 50-50 if it went well.
I believe that.
What I found out about C-store pizza is it either saves the day or it kicks you right in the ass. But I don't know. I mean, you know, some of the stuff, it's like you gotta just, like you said, test, fail, try it out.
Yep.
See what works, what doesn't work for you.
Yeah. And even looking at like you said, if you're not training in the area where the event is happening, it can be helpful to think of like, well, am I stopping at Circle K's? Am I stopping at Dollar General? Like the internet is an amazing tool. You can look and see like, well, what can I buy there? You know? And especially if you have a specific dietary preferences, like we'll get into some of the other things with like people who need to eat gluten-free or need to eat high sodium. When you do have those specific needs, it's even more important that you really look into like,
Definitely.
what can I get in different places?
That's definitely true. Because if you can go in and eat just anything, you're going to find something.
Right.
You know, the C-stores of what they have in there now versus back in the day, there's no comparison.
Yeah.
There's some decent stuff in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes it can be really helpful, like you mentioned, with a ride where you're like, okay, I'm bringing my Carbo Rocket with. And that's very similar to like what I just laid out for saying like 2 days of the point to point.
Yeah.
Where you have, you know, you have the fuel that you've used and you know what you need and it's reliable, right?
Yep.
So you have what you need. And I always try to recommend fueling like on the higher end so that say if you get to the store and it's closed, you still have the minimum amount of carbohydrates you need to get yourself from point A to point B to get resupplied.
Mm-hmm. Tori Dupra, Lance, Subway, 1 a.m. Not open.
He's never going to live that story down.
Well, hey, on the bright side, he knows we're always thinking about him.
True.
Did I hear there's a 24-hour holiday now?
Circle K opened up. I have not heard that it's verified 24 hours. I've heard rumor that it's 24 hours.
I saw they had a deli.
Yeah.
So.
It looks like a great spot.
And a deli.
Yeah.
It's the old holiday, for the Crusher 2020, 2021. There's some nostalgia there. It's sad that it's gone. There's some memories there.
Tragic.
Yeah.
It's too bad. But just have to make some new ones.
Yeah.
New space, new memories.
I'm sure, you know what, a deli, there's lots of opportunity for maybe some inappropriate nutrition choices.
Oh, there's no doubt.
Someone will find some hot sauce or
There's
some
no doubt.
chili or something they should have, said no to.
That's right. Let's see. We got a couple Polar Roll questions. How about from Caitlin for winter events? What real food and fuel can I pack that won't freeze into a frozen hockey puck?
Yeah. Yeah. This is a relevant question for her because she just did the St. Croix.
I saw that over the weekend, right? With who did it with her? Karen?
Karen. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They crushed it. So a lot of the times we're thinking about with winter events and reducing the risk of freezing with real foods, we're trying to get foods that are the lowest water content because that's what's going to make it freeze, right? So, but then if something does freeze, you want to make sure it's still edible. So there's kind of like two sides to that story. Think about like the frozen jars of peanut butter we saw come through Polar Ultra last year.
Yeah.
The only person that came through with actually edible food was Evan Simila. Like he had a unopened bag of sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
Already all shelled. And it's like, yeah, you could put those in your mouth.
Sure.
And, like he could have actually survived. Everyone else that had a frozen, peanut butter jar.
They were a brick.
They were
nuts
brick.
and seeds.
Nuts and seeds, exactly.
Yeah. Yep. And so that would be the thing, like obviously with that focus on carbs, like making your protein and or fat, something like that, like nuts and seeds, something that you can eat when it's frozen. Finding, granola bars or things like that, anything that you're bringing in a bigger piece, cutting it before you're getting out onto the trail. It can also be helpful where you're storing your food. So, if you're keeping it, hand warmers are really helpful. I know people have done like they've made insulated bags for their like hydration bladder and things like that.
Yeah.
It can be helpful to like put food in the freezer and like see and then take it on a ride or put it like when I'm cross country skiing, I put it in the front of my like skiing jacket. And then, ski out however far I want to and then see like, can I still eat this thing on the way back? Mm-hmm. And from a fluid standpoint, like just really having a handle on your hydration situation, it may seem really enticing. And Caitlin and I had a conversation about this exactly before the St. Croix 40 because she was feeling like she might want to use like a Camelback. And she was required to carry 2 insulated containers just like for Polar Ultra. Mm-hmm. And we talked through like your hydration bladder, the potential for freezing with really cold conditions as a liability. And then now you have a hydration system that you can't use. Mm-hmm. And if, Steve Smith has like done his where he's like made this like, I don't know if it's like Tyvek or it's like shiny bubble wrap. And he's got that all dialed in with like, he knows exactly what layers to have on. And he's like got it all down to a science.
Got a system.
Yeah. And so if you don't have a system, then don't lead into the panic. Don't have it be your emotional support hydration pack that is frozen.
Right.
It's doing you no good.
Right.
So we kind of talked about like, instead of carrying that hydration pack, like carrying another container of warm fluids that's inside her insulated frame bag that is less likely to get frozen. But having carbs and or electrolytes, so having particles in your water, not like backwash,
right.
That's going to make it less likely to freeze.
Yeah, makes sense. Eric asked on the note of cold.
Yes.
Ideas for the lightest and most nutrient-dense items.
Yeah, a couple of it depends on like what you need, right? Because the nutrient dense item and the lightest item for say like carbs, protein, and fats are going to all look different.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but like going back to the carbohydrate mix, as long as you have water, something like that is going to be light and not take up a whole lot of space and give you more of a carbohydrate bang for your buck. And kind of going back to what we said, maybe they're not the lightest, but yeah, like from a fat perspective, like the nuts and seeds are going to be very nutrient dense. So I think saying lightest and nutrient dense and really cold kind of pigeonholes you a little bit too much. And so it's just kind of depending on what you're looking for. And if you're sitting down, like say if you're more of like Mark's kind of like, I want to sit down for a meal. Like I know of people who have done like those backpacking meals.
Yeah. Those are good.
Yeah. Like oatmeal, even starting off with like, I've had clients who've brought like, apple cider mix or like hot chocolate mix or something like that. That's like, they'll drink when it's warm, like ramen, some of those things that are dry, But then again, you're taking the time and you're in the elements to actually eat them. So it depends. Is it food that you're going to eat? You're going to stop and eat, or is it food that you're going to eat like along the trail?
Yeah. It's not straightforward and simple.
It's not. And I know it's like, well, it depends. Like I hate to always have that answer, but it is really true,
Yeah. Follow-up question from Dave. What foods are still able to be eaten when it's -20 outside?
Yeah. And that's, not a lot, right? Like the colder it gets, it's going to be more difficult. And a lot of those same rules that apply is trialing those things. If it's going to be -20, I would keep foods that have the least amount of water content, being really diligent about like the size of the food that you're bringing, making sure you can warm it. And then just like storage, prevention of something freezing and how you store, keeping food sometimes close to your body, keeping it with hand warmers, some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Also a more frequent resupply if possible. Like if you're not unsupported.
What if you don't have any resupply?
Yeah.
What if you're totally self-supported?
Well, then you're going to have to like also figure out like where those spots where they can stop at, right? Like the Circle K's and the things like that.
Yeah, for us, they come through Marquette, so they've got some options there.
Yep.
I'm thinking on the Ultra right now. Marquette, and then you got Evans Camp.
Yep.
And then they've got options there.
Yep.
And then into Ishpeming. Yeah.
Yep.
Not Baby Todd, I don't know who that is,
I don't either.
asked if drinking Malort increases your chances of finishing the Polar Roll.
I have no evidence to think
The
that
answer
it would.
is yes. We don't have any evidence that this is true, but I'm going to say absolutely. You should drink a lot of it.
You're going to answer my question.
That was actually a question from Todd to Todd. Would you drink Malort?
Would I?
Yeah. Have you had Malort?
No.
No?
We talked about this already.
Well,
I've never had alcohol my
I just-
entire life.
That's insane.
I know. And when people don't believe me, I'm like, well, I've had church wine. And so if you count that,
Church
that's the only
wine.
thing.
Did you feel dirty?
No, like it's communion, right?
Just making sure. Just making sure.
I know you offered me some of that moonshine and I was like, Todd, I'm not going to drink
It's still right there.
I know. I'm not. You were telling
wanna
me.
smell it?
No, I don't want to smell
You should crack that open. Let her smell it. You don't want to smell it?
I don't want to smell
Come on, we ate your buffalo. Smell our moonshine. We'll do that off air. We don't want to embarrass her. She might get sick.
Already embarrassed. It's fine.
Okay, I already asked that one. Mike asked, how do carbs, water, and electrolytes intake change for an event like Polar Roll versus Margie?
So we already talked a little bit about,
Yeah.
we already hit the water and the electrolyte
Right.
section. So I'm going to focus on the carb part.
Okay.
It may surprise you. A little bit depends on effort, like what event is someone doing and what do they envision their intensity. So someone heading out and doing the Polar Roll Ultra, so a longer event, versus someone going out and, trying to get the fastest known time for the mini Margie. Their intensity is going to be different.
Absolutely, yes.
But in most cases, if we compare apples and apples, so if we compare the same distance and intensity for Polar Roll and Margie, we actually need more carbs when it's cold. So we would need to have more carbs on board for Polar Roll than you would for Margie. And that's just because your body has to keep you warm. And if you start to shiver, so if you start trending towards hypothermia, the only macronutrient or energy source your body can use to help warm you up is carbohydrates. So it actually becomes more of a survival type situation. So I usually will recommend people err on the higher end or plan extra carbs for Polar Roll.
Okay, that's good to know. This is an interesting one. So Caitlin had asked, how much real food do I need for every 4 hours of riding, and how do I keep that food on my bike for 40 hours? So she was angling this toward the Crusher EX225.
Yep.
I don't know about you. This is a non-scientific answer.
Yes.
Like when we've done different long stuff, or anytime I do anything long, I don't get super anal about quantities. The way I've approached it is making sure that I have a variety of things that I know at one point or another in the ride will be a go-to that I'll take. Because it seems like for me, I don't know about for Mark, but for me through a ride, if I'm like, I'm going to eat this, this, and this is it for the whole ride, that does not fly. Because at some point I'm like, fuck that. I do not want that, right?
Yeah.
So I think variety is really important.
Yeah.
And then, of course, having all the bases checked as far as carbs and protein and fat and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, you can answer that.
No, and that's absolutely true. And like to answer Caitlin's question in regards to like the EX225, it's like a couple questions, follow-up questions, and there are like, are you going to have support every 4 hours, or are you hauling that real food on your bike?
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
That's
a big difference.
Someone going out self-supported.
Yeah.
And that's going to depend on like what you are bringing, what you can bring with you. And then, like, how do I keep that food on my bike? Obviously, you're doing it in July, like it might be 90, 100 degrees. Well, I mean, I know Jill Martindale carried pasta salad with her during the point-to-point.
Yum.
And she made a comment when I saw her when I did the mass start that year. She was like, "We'll see if my pasta salad's still good by the time we get back to Otter Lake." Don't get yourself into like a food safety situation, or maybe eat that thing as like a last ditch effort. But again, kind of being like, we're looking at space, we're looking at support, and how much real food do I need every 4 hours? Again, that's going to depend on like how much you're relying on sports nutrition products, and how much space you have to carry some of that real food.
How much real food do I need for every 4 hours? Why is she queuing in on every 4 hours?
I'm not sure. It might be, one thought I had was like, is she used to eating every 4 hours at home? So that's kind of queuing. Like a lot of the time we tell people to eat meals.
Yeah.
Every 4
Caitlin,
hours.
where are you coming from? Fill us in here. Send us some information. Oh, I had a thought on that too. Oh, I was going to ask you. So when you do long rides, like a Crusher, 225, how often when you get done with that ride and you're unpacking, do you have food left over?
Oh, I always have food left over. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah. It's just a good indication that I prepared properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I always food left over too.
Yeah.
I always bring extra because I have kids, usually riding with kids.
Yeah.
Everybody's hungry.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've kind of done that just because it's like, well, you just, again, having options is good. And then a lot of times, if you're riding with other people, you never know what they're going to have or what they've done to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
That was like one of the last conversations I had with Tara, was talking about adventure partners and what makes a good adventure partner.
Yeah.
And she even went through, I mean, this will probably not surprise you, but she had like meetings. They had like, meetings with the people that they were doing like the Not Fun Run with. And that really like rubbed her raw, where she was just like, we had all these meetings, like I made these spreadsheets, and like people showed up and didn't have enough. And then obviously it puts a little bit of a strain on the other people in your group, because you're potentially sharing things with them. So yeah, that can be like, don't be a liability to yourself, but then also not be a liability to like your adventure partners.
Right. 100% on that. I guess follow up. Caitlin had another one here. At Margie around 2 a.m., she couldn't swallow food anymore. What would be recommended at that point for somebody? Text Todd, quitter.
Yeah, she did not. I know the.
So let me ask you.
I know the solution to this story, but I'm not going to spoil it quite
Let
yet.
me ask you a question on that. So if somebody, because this is not uncommon that somebody gets, at Margie in particular, or even Crusher actually, they can't put food down anymore. What's going on?
Could be a number of things. I wonder sometimes, like with the swallowing part of it, if it's just stuff like your throat just got kind of rubbed raw from, if it, like those scratch gummies are like coated in sugar, or if it was like something that you were eating that kind of just over the accumulation of, however many hours it is from the start of the race till 2 a.m. And having something on board, like we never think that that's going to happen, especially if it hasn't happened to us in a race, or like I should say, like a training.
Have you had that happen?
Session. No, I haven't had the fact that I couldn't swallow anymore. I got to the point where I mentally was done with food, but it was not a physical issue.
So she was saying that this was a physical issue?
Yeah, she could not swallow food anymore. So this is a really great kind of like reason to have some type of carb containing liquid that you don't have to use it all the time, but to have it on board in your stuff, whether it's in your drop bag or with your crew, so that if you do run into an issue like that, you can just drink it versus, eating the food.
Yeah.
And then you're kind of just like, you're force drinking at that point. You're force feeding yourself.
Have you got to the point where you can swallow?
Not swallow. I've checked out mentally from eating before, but
have you got to the point to where you were just like, you couldn't put more food down? Like just the idea of it made you sick?
I can't say that I've never gotten like that.
Yeah.
I know I've taken in too much caffeine, but I've since stopped consuming caffeine on the trail.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been times where I've just checked out and recycled and kind of recovered from it and then started eating again.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's why too, having like, from the not being able to keep things down, having like little cans of, whether it's ginger ale or Sprite, like in your stuff, in your gear or in your, sometimes that can really save you. I know for me, like if I'm feeling like I don't want to eat anything, like a Coke can turn things right around.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually carry at least one little mini can of Coke with me, or that's something that I'll buy at the gas station if I'm like we did some training rides for Crusher.
Coke is magic.
It is magic. I even put it in my front flask on my hydration bladder, but then you forget that it's carbonated, so you could drink out of it and all the carbonation kind of ends up exploding. So,
and this question, how do we figure out what we will want to eat at hour 20 plus without doing a 20 plus hour effort in training?
I really liked that.
Well, I can't wait for the answer.
I know, right? I was like, well, that's true. I don't know that I ever did. And I finished Margie at 21 hours, 5 a.m, and I never did a 21-hour training ride. So, yeah. The sad thing, Anne, is that you're not going to know.
That's exactly.
But you can be a really educated guesser. And I think the theme is having variety of, you don't really know what you're going to want, so give yourself some options. And if you can't make a decision, have a fallback on and I call that base nutrition. And for me, it's like an amount of the Scratch Super High Carb. And I think it's from my marathon running days. I still use gels. That's my base nutrition. And so it's kind of like, those are the things I'm just going to force myself to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I did for Margie. Like I was done with food and I got back to my crew and I realized I didn't have enough wrappers to give them. I made that mental note of like, I have too many gels still unopened. Mm-hmm. And so my eat timer had still been going off every 30 minutes, but I would kind of be like, well, I wasn't following the plan. And so at that point I was like, you can't disregard your eat timer anymore. And you just have to do the thing. Mm-hmm. So
I would tell Anne, if you're still on the trail at 20 plus hours at Margie, run off of spite. It weighs nothing.
That's right.
And it feels good.
It does weigh nothing.
Just to think about, I'm going to spitefully finish.
Yeah. I will have to say, having like the 20 plus hour effort, one thing that might be helpful for Anne to plan for, especially if she has a crew, is Margie has the potential for some cold overnight hours.
Oh, yeah.
And so having something in your stash or in your quiver that is warm and potentially has some caffeine if you use caffeine. So I had cups of ramen and spoons, and I also had some Velodrome instant coffee. And so when it got dark, the person who was crewing for me went to her house and filled up a thermos with hot water. And I just kind of had made that mental decision that if I got to a point where I was cold or feeling particularly tired, that I was going to sit down and, make a cup of coffee or eat a bowl of ramen or both to help with that, just to kind of like rewarm internally. They also make some bone broth packets that are like well received. The folks that I know that have tried them on races and stuff.
Yeah.
And
I've heard good things about that.
And when it gets cold, right, it's like you're getting some fluids, you're getting some sodium, you're getting some protein. I would say like bone broth and having some Coke. Although I don't know that I would want to drink a Coke if I'm shivering and wet and cold.
It's just going to make you colder.
And tired.
Although it might be a jolt.
It might be a jolt.
Somebody asked again, this is from Not Baby Todd. How many carbs will be needed for the secret event?
I have zero information about the secret event.
I will answer this question.
I love it.
666
Per hour.
I can't answer if it's for the event or per hour. We'll share that later.
Will there be a support station?
I can't share that either.
Okay.
Maybe.
Is the food boss lady / candy lady needed at the secret event?
Maybe.
It's already blocked off on my calendar, so
Yeah, we'll have something for you.
I'm sure you will.
We will. I like this one that's coming up here. I'm going to jump to this one.
Yeah.
Ray's already asked a lot of questions. I'm going to skip.
Ray has asked a lot of questions.
80085 is the password, asks. I'd like to lose 5 to 10 pounds while training. That's about 3 to 5%. How do you go about doing that with a heavy training load? Is it even worth it to try to lose the weight, or should I just focus on training?
I like this question.
I do too. Wait a minute. How would you answer the question?
I really don't think about my weight ever.
You confident motherfucker.
Well, I just, if my pants are loose, I put on a belt.
You've been looking good lately.
Thanks,
I can
Tom.
tell you're working out.
Thanks.
What do you? We're having a moment
What
here.
if your pants are tight? Then what do you do?
Squat, more squats.
So then they're tighter?
Gotta get moving again.
Shoot.
More squats.
More squats. Yeah. Just
Sean will love that.
more squats.
Well, let me simplify the question for you. Do you think this person should worry about losing the weight or just focus on training?
Yeah, focus on the goal. Focus on the journey.
Yeah.
Get moving.
What do you think, Don?
My answer is a little bit more, has two parts. It depends where they are in their training. They did say like a heavy training load. So I'm going to assume that most people are heading into that like heavy training load season for Margie, like say like May and beyond.
Yeah.
And usually Margie camp, or sometimes sooner, is kind of the threshold where I would tell people like just focus on training. You know, I do have folks who are doing Margie this year, and that's their A race, and they want to focus on losing weight now. And this is actually an appropriate time. You know, one thing that can be hard with that heavy training load is it can be a lot of variables to try to figure out. And we have these guidelines, right? Or we have these ideas or very educated guesses on how much someone needs. But then when they're training a lot more than most humans do, like the body can perceive that as stress. Like there's lots of different ways that your weight could be impacted. If you do a really heavy, a long effort and you have more like muscle breakdown and inflammation and water weight, like you may see an increase in your weight. Like your body is made up more than just like, you know, fat mass and muscle mass.
Yep.
And so to me, in any human, and I say this with a grain of salt because a 5 to 10% weight loss, and I know he said 3 to 5 to 10% weight loss. If we look at chronic disease risk, so like trying to be a healthier individual, there are studies that have shown like with heart disease and diabetes, a 5 to 10% weight loss over 6 months can improve those things. So if someone is trying to lose less than that, I consider that to be vanity weight, right? Meaning like you want to look more ripped or whatever, you want a lower body composition. It's not necessarily about may or may not be about being healthier.
Mm-hmm.
So then is it a liability to have an energy deficit with a high training load? And that's my concern. You know, you can do it. It's possible. But what you need to really do is do it well and really be almost like militant about the timing of nutrition. So if someone has a really high training load and say they're trying to lose that 3 to 5% by intermittent fasting, and say they're a 6 a.m. gym goer or worker outer, right? If they're not eating their calories around their training sessions, they're potentially not getting the most out of that training session.
Yeah.
And even if they're meeting their caloric needs throughout the day, if they're eating all of those foods before bed because they're so hangry, because they finally, are allowing themselves to eat, a lot of the times they're not going to see weight loss. They're not going to see a body composition change, because then your body's going to sleep. So it's just going to hold on to those calories. So it's possible. It has to be done well. But I'm a big believer with when you're at a high training load, and if someone is doing that year round, you should focus on your training and also be okay with the body that you're training that is a result of your training.
Correct. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think if you're following a structured plan that's been put together by a professional or just somebody who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
They're well versed in training. If you're following some sort of balanced, attuned diet to performance, if you have weight to lose, you're probably going to lose some of it.
Yep.
And if you're at kind of your body's set point, I'd just go with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because for instance, if we think about losing 5 to 10 pounds, well, do you have 5 to 10 pounds of muscle to lose? Because that would not be advantageous to an event any of the 906 events, right? That strength component is so high. If you're, I don't know, I can't think of an event that it would be really beneficial to be just, in road marathoning, we would call, some of the elite athletes from Kenya, lungs with legs, right? They have zero muscle mass. Yeah. And when, you look for fast courses to run as fast as you possibly can, well, that's very different when you're looking at the elevation gains of a lot of the 906 events.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, when Rob and I would talk about or have talked about in the past weight as related to performance, I mean, he'll be quick to point out, okay, you lose 5-10 pounds. Great. You're lighter. How much did it impact your power?
Yeah. Yep.
Because he's like, nothing is free. You don't get rid of something without giving something.
Yep.
That's, give and take. So I think that's just something you got to be aware of. Mm-hmm. If you could start losing a bunch of weight, but then your performance could actually go down.
Yeah. Yeah. Lighter doesn't always necessarily mean that you're going to be the fastest out there. And thinking about all the events, faster isn't always the goal.
Right.
Right.
No, finishing what you start is the goal.
Right.
Okay, from Sarah, this is a big question.
It is a big question.
So I have low potassium and magnesium, managed well by my physician, in parentheses. But in the past, when I work out for an hour or so, I drink an electrolyte mix, such as Element, but that doesn't have fueling calories. I am new to fueling for endurance events. Do you have tips on what to try that offers both higher electrolytes and calories? And how many calories should I aim for per hour of activity? Thanks.
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is under the enhanced life conditions, right? We all might not have the same situation as Sarah, but maybe it's different. I am a big fan of kind of stacking things. So it sounds like she has an electrolyte mix that she's using that has been working for her. So it's how can we add carbs to that, session? If she's doing an effort that's in less than 90 minutes or an hour and a half, if she kind of heads into that training session with about 60 grams of carbohydrate as a pre-training snack, that's that we don't need anything during, the calories per hour or the carbs per hour can kind of look at two different things. Lower intensity kind of warrants a lower carbohydrates per hour. But once we get into longer durations, if someone really wants to look at calories, we're looking to replace about 40 to 50% of the calories that we're burning. And you have to know like you have to be able to estimate what that would be. I have clients who can tell me like based on, what they're going to do, like they're kind of like married to their watch or married to these calculators, and going back to like being content with the body that you're training is kind of presenting. And I think this would be true for a lot of people in the 906 community. Like when I go out to train, it's not about burning a certain number of calories. And so that's why I oftentimes make recommendations based off of carbs, because if you have calories from fat, you might not be getting enough carbs. So 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate for every hour between 90 minutes and like 2.5 hours. And then that 90 plus grams an hour or 60 to 90 plus grams an hour would be any effort that's over 2.5 hours. And so there's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. So if we do the math quickly, right? Mm-hmm. That's like 120 calories to 240 calories for that 90 minutes to an hour and a half. And then 270 plus calories per hour if we're doing sessions 2.5 hours or more.
All right. Have you used that element?
I have.
I might have tried it once. Is it good?
Mm-hmm. I like to mix it with, so another option for Sarah is element can be well mixed with like any other type of high carb drink mix. And you wouldn't have to mix it the full strength, so if she only wanted 50 grams of carbohydrate, well, like maybe it's only half a serving of the Scratch super high carb.
Right.
And you can actually mix the element right in there. Because that works for her. If she was trying to figure out something else, a lot of those sports nutrition companies are coming out with almost like an electrolyte booster. So it's like a flavorless, almost like a sodium, like you can adjust your sodium needs based on your sweat test, your guinea pigging yourself.
Okay. From Beth. She actually brought this up on the podcast when she was on.
Oh, yeah, I heard that.
So I'm someone who is prone to leg cramping during longer efforts, 2 to 3 hours plus, but also notice signs of cramping while strength training, especially the hamstrings, and often have nighttime feet cramping. What should I be thinking about nutritionally day to day to alleviate them? What should I be looking at as preventative around events? What are good emergency relief options on the trail? Bonus, if those emergency relief options don't mess up my gut. Additional info, 60-plus-year-old female, postmenopausal on full spectrum HRT.
Lots of
there you
good
go.
questions.
Unpack
Again,
that one.
another life-enhanced condition, right?
Yeah.
So looking at cramps, obviously we look at a few different things. I always try to start with the most basic answer first, and that might just be, are her nutritional needs being met from a food standpoint?
Yep.
Because lack of nutrition or underfueling can potentially cause cramps. Mm-hmm. We could also look at intensity of those sessions. If there's a pattern with when these cramping signs are showing up. But the nighttime feet cramping makes me think potentially more magnesium related. And so a lot of the electrolyte supplements are more sodium based. I also think about like a nod to potassium as well. Mm-hmm. So for instance, like Element is going to be really high in sodium, has 1,000 milligrams. There are electrolyte capsules from companies like Precision Fuel, where theirs has a little bit more magnesium in it. A really good source of potassium is like a banana, right? So it might just say like having a few of these things on board, and even trying to figure out like which one of these things will help alleviate those cramps, And my guess is that Beth may or may not have already tried like something more sodium related because it's more prevalent, Yeah. But with the nighttime feet cramping, there might be a benefit to taking a magnesium supplement at bedtime or at dinner time to help alleviate some of those things.
Are there tests that she could go take that might narrow this down?
Yeah. So if it's like from the day-to-day nutritional standpoint, having a blood test done with, and it's usually a CMP, which is a comprehensive metabolic panel. Most doctors will order a BMP, which is a basic metabolic panel, but that won't have all your electrolytes. And so that would give her an idea of like, is she low in some of these electrolytes, and is a daily supplement something that's recommended, or is it just a deficiency or a situation that's happening with activity like strength training?
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be a good place to start, you know? And then the next thing, and it might help find a solution and also find her good emergency relief on the trail, is kind of like what I said is like, okay, seeing if you preload with electrolytes that mainly have sodium, like an element, does that alleviate it? And if you have another similar like intensity session, like so maybe it's the same lift the next week. If you preload with a supplement or a electrolyte that has more magnesium, does that alleviate it? And then try the same thing with something that has more potassium or like a banana, right?
Yeah. I don't remember what she said she tried. I know.
Did she say she tried pickle juice?
Yeah. It didn't work.
So
which is surprising.
that would get me to nod that it's not sodium.
Yeah.
You know, and that it might be magnesium. And in some people, it's a trifecta, right? It's like a combination of some of those different things.
That makes sense too.
And I mean, obviously, whenever we're looking at sodium or electrolytes, fluid intake is also, you know, something to keep in mind. Because like if someone is cramping, are they drinking too much water? Are they drinking not enough water? But yeah, I would start with, sometimes like in this situation, like I would either have Beth do like a 24-hour recall where she's telling me what she ate yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm writing it all down, and then I'm going to figure out like, based on that information, what's a good guess at like what Beth is eating. Mm-hmm. Or I would ask her to like keep a food journal for 3 to 5 days, including some weekend and weekdays. And then I would analyze that. And again, taking both of those with a grain of salt, they definitely have their benefits, and they're also their like, you know, limitations. But then that would be a good idea, comparing that to what she needs in her as an individual, right? She said she's 60 plus, postmenopausal, HRT. Like I would take that all into consideration. So sometimes it is, especially if it's a situation that you're having a hard time finding a solution for. That's usually when can be really helpful to work with a professional and someone that can really like get into the weeds with all those things.
Could some of the stuff, any of the stuff, none of the stuff, whether it's, you know, what Beth's talking about with cramping, Caitlin or other people talking about getting to a point where they just can't eat, or maybe they get sick, etc. Could some of that stem from medications you may be taking?
Yep.
Because, I mean, people are obviously on all different medications. Mm-hmm. That's not standard. So, yeah. I mean, how much of that should people factor in if they are on some sort of medication, et cetera?
Yeah.
I think it plays in.
They should. Oh, absolutely. They should look at all of it. Like some of the medications for like mental health, like lithium has a very strong tie to like sodium levels. Mm-hmm. That's one I know off the top of my head, but I think it's really important to think about you like anytime there's a problem, it's so easy to kind of like hone in and focus on that problem. Mm-hmm. But like, when the solutions you're trying aren't working, it can be really helpful to look like broaden the perspective.
Yeah. Big picture.
Yeah. Big picture. Absolutely. And so, yeah, look at medications. And these are things, you know, I ask my people that I'm working with, like, you know, what are you on? Like, what's your health history like? What information do you have? And sometimes it might think like, well, Dawn, what does this have to do with sports nutrition? And it's like, but you're a human, you know? And it's like, all of those factors have to be included. What meds you're on, what supplements you take, you know, and even for like myself, like I have celiac disease. I don't tolerate things as well as someone who doesn't. I say I have a sensitive GI tract, and it's super true. So I'm more likely to get side effects from medications. I'm more likely to, you know, experience nausea on the trail. And so it's my responsibility, because I know that about myself, to plan for those things.
Do you, when you're working with people, do you ever recommend that they journal what they're eating, what they're drinking, their workouts? The only reason I ask is, I think that we as humans have a tendency to think we can just accurately remember everything.
Yeah.
And the truth is we don't accurately remember anything. So it's almost, I feel like if somebody were to journal for a solid year, like truly be disciplined in journaling, what they're eating, what they're drinking, medications, when they're drinking alcohol or whatever else they're into, and just really be objective and emotionally detached from what they're putting in there and just make sure it's 100%. I think they'd be shocked when they actually start to look back across months of context to start to see what they think they're good at versus what they're good at.
Yeah, absolutely.
But has that ever come up? Is that a tactic for you?
Yeah.
As somebody that works with people?
Absolutely. And it has to be someone who they have to be committed to doing it, right? Obviously, being that meticulous about journaling, like especially with food, that would not bode well for most people that have a history of an eating disorder, right? Or if we have someone who has a history of like obsessive exercise, right? Some of those things. But there's a lot that can be learned by that neutral approach of looking at like your training, how you feel. And when people are trying to figure out a solution for something they're experiencing, like cramping, having a journal because what you eat today doesn't necessarily determine how you're going to feel today.
Yeah.
It might be tomorrow or the next day, or it might be a week from now's workout. And so again, the more information we have, it can be really helpful to have that information.
Yeah. Seems like you could make better decisions with
could.
more and better information.
Well, you also need time to like interpret that data, right? And like you said, to look at it objectively or neutrally, I think it can be hard for a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. How are you doing on time?
I got like 20 minutes.
Okay. So here we go. How can one stay fueled and upright when they need massive amounts of salt for their heart blood volume to minimize, what is that?
Dysautonomia.
Yeah, there you go. But they can't eat gluten for their celiac, and their brain is already working overtime to recover from everything else like work, life balance, ? How does build a race day recipe of always be ready? How does one build a race day recipe of always be ready? Missing a word there. That doesn't cause a total body crash.
This person has got a lot of other things, right? Like you might be on the start line and the person next to you has 0 of these things to keep in mind, right? Mm-hmm. We all have individual capacity for training, for, whatever it is, our fitness level, our preparation. And so that would be my thing, is to like really identify like what effort or what capacity do you have to put into these events, Yep. And because it stinks to say, especially when something is physical, like, balancing or juggling like autoimmune diseases and things that impact your heart and your GI tract. Like you need your heart and you need your stomach and your GI tract for these events, right? Yeah. And just to survive as a human.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So they say they need massive amounts of salt for their heart blood volume.
Yep.
To minimize whatever that is. What are we talking about there?
Yeah. So there's some particular diseases, and you may have heard of POTS, which is like, I'm not forgetting the acronym at the moment, but what it does is the blood volume or the volume of your total body blood is impacted by your cell intake. And so a lot of these people it's postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, just came to me back. Okay. So a lot of these people, and this dysautonomia is a very similar type of disease where people need to consume, like say we said, okay, someone who's a heavy sweater needs to start around 1,000 milligrams of sodium or a gram. People with some of these blood volume related diseases that impact the cardiovascular system need to start at like 6,000 milligrams of sodium or more. I have a young athlete who I'm working with that, depending on how much they're sweating, they need anywhere from 6,000 to 10,000 milligrams of sodium per day on the days when they're exercising. So it's like really taking a magnitude of, us thinking like, oh, 1,000 milligrams an hour is a lot. And we're six to 10 times seeing that, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then with celiac, the concern is, when we talk about the emphasis on carbs, well, people with celiac disease can't have gluten, which is the protein in carbohydrates.
Right.
And so luckily, there are a lot more products out there, whether it's real food or sports nutrition products that are gluten-free. But it also impacts digestion and absorption. And so in this particular sense, like say if someone was just diagnosed with both of these things and they don't feel like they have a good handle on it, they may need to take some time to figure that out in order to feel like they're able to get to a point where they don't have a total body crash.
That is a tough one.
It is. It's definitely possible to do that. And even getting some of those like real food sources of carbohydrates or the more, I think about like those salty sources of carbohydrates. So whether it's like gluten-free pretzels or, crackers and things like that would be something that, might be a mainstay in some of their like hourly nutrition on top of some of those other like supplements and things like that.
And they can reach out to you.
And they can reach out. Yeah.
And continue the conversation.
Absolutely. But I mean, I think it goes to show that like, it's amazing what people overcome. And I love the mentality that this question had of like, they're not saying like, they're not counting themselves out. And I love that.
Absolutely.
And I love that. I love that like
they're in the
mindset,
game.
right? They're like, hey, it's not like, woe is me. I have all these problems. I'm going to just sit on the sideline.
Right.
It's like, hey, I'm AFI,
Yeah.
And
What can I do?
Yeah. What can I do? And I would say some of this might come from training load might be a good thing to look at. Like if you're trying to manage your electrolytes and your nutritional intake, adjusting how much you're training, like you might need to dial back your training a little bit so that it can give you time to figure out, some of these things.
Makes sense. I think it's the last question.
Yeah.
All right. I've done Margie Gessick 100 bike twice now, and both times I ended up feeling nauseous the majority of the race from about noon onward, if I recall correctly. So far, this person is on average.
On average, yeah. Congrats, you're a human.
Yes. I stuck mainly with fruit strips and energy gels the first year. Second year, I added honey stinger waffles and some trail mix to have some more solid food. Both years, I shot to have about 300 calories an hour, but failed to keep up with that after I started feeling, sick.
Yeah.
I also used noon tabs for my electrolytes both years. My question is, what should I be exploring and or doing differently to prevent the nausea and having to stop me from taking in the energy I need? In parentheses, I bonked a lot in both races. Bonus constraints.
We got lots of people with GI issues.
I've been diagnosed with celiac and ulcerative colitis this year. So now I am really at a loss for how to fuel myself for long events. Any advice would be appreciated.
Yeah. We got lots of people with sensitive GI tracts there.
Yeah.
We should start a club.
Yeah. So what do you think on this one?
The first thing that stands out, and again, going back to that, like start with the simplest solution, it's more than likely that this person isn't eating enough, right? I don't know how much they're burning per hour. So the 300 calories per hour doesn't really give me a whole lot of sense of like, if they got 3,000 calories from bison chips, right?
Yeah.
Or from, they shared that they, some of the foods that they used, but I definitely know like those honey stinger waffles or even trail mix in like high amounts potentially could contribute to like kind of a stomach ache.
Yeah.
And so I think really starting with adding in some like real food. So when we're bonking and when we're nauseous, the two things I think about is like, are they getting enough carbs?
Mm-hmm.
Are they getting enough fluid and electrolytes? Because you need sodium in order for your digestion to occur properly.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I would start with is like checking all the basis on what are their carb needs, what are their fluid needs, and what are their electrolyte needs. And then having some foods that are available if they do become nauseous, like I said, like ginger ale, Sprite, some gluten-free crackers, pretzels, and maybe even some other things like the bone broth or ramen, certain things like that they could have on board. I know, was it 2 years ago? I think Christy McBride, it was a hot year. It was nothing but she had Coke and pickle juice like mixed together. Like there's some weird combinations out there.
I'll do them both separate, but don't mix them together.
Yeah.
Christy, you're crazy.
She relied primarily on Scratch super high carb.
Gotcha.
And so, I really do wonder, like, where was this person's, carbohydrate intake enough or at, and was it enough? Where was their fluid intake at, and was it enough?
Yeah. And
where was their electrolytes at, and was it enough? And the cool thing is, like, as we get, closer to the race, I have some people who work with me, through self-support nutrition. Mm-hmm. There's some people who I work with individually. And so I'm seeing them periodically, like across, as they lead up to the race, depending on when they reach out. And then one thing that I started offering kind of like silently on a sidebar last fall was like an event specific nutrition plan. And so if someone really just wants me to tell them what to eat, like we meet for a half hour, we go through like all of this. I ask a lot of questions and then send them like a spreadsheet of what nutrition products they're using per hour. If they're using a support crew, I write like all their like drop bag lists and all the things, support crew stops if they're using that. And so sometimes that can be really helpful if you're like, hey, I feel like if you're not really interested in all of the explanation behind it, or if it's solely a nutrition plan question for that event. Yeah. But sometimes it is like, what was your nutrition like leading into the event? Like Margie is just one day. Mm-hmm. And like to kind of give an answer to that question of like, we only really have information about this person about 2 days out of this person's whole life. Yeah. And so sometimes it is like some of these other questions about like, postmenopause and people being in larger bodies and people with GI diseases. It's really looking at the whole person versus just like someone who is running or riding Margie on that one day.
I would think that as somebody's dietary needs becomes more complicated and the different health obstacles that they're working around, maybe the more they need some help navigating that.
Yeah.
For sure.
And the nice thing is once we figure it out together, like that person can take that plan or idea and run with it, right? So to speak, no pun intended. Yeah. And then, sometimes adjustments need to be made. One of like, I don't have favorite clients, but a client that I'm reminded of is someone who came to me to run their first 50K, and they had been running marathons. And we only had a handful over like a 2-year span of time. I believe we had less than like 5 or 6 appointments, and they did what they were asked, followed the plan, and they were able to fuel a 50K, a 50 mile, 100K, and a 100-mile run. So
just by following the plan,
and figuring out what worked for them. Yeah. And even I remember seeing them like right ahead of that, like their 100-mile run. And I was like, hey, like you've got this. If you're getting stuff ready and you start like feeling like uneasy about things, like give me a call. I'm happy to look at anything, but like, you don't need me anymore. And that's always my goal is like, I want you to be able to like figure it out on your own. But sometimes you do need someone to say like, this is what you need to do.
Yeah. There's one question here from Ray that I didn't ask.
Oh yeah.
Should fat/protein and or fiber be avoided during rides?
That's another, Ray has all the great questions, right? So it depends on the intensity. The higher the intensity, the more those foods should be avoided. So if you're going out and doing like hill sprints or something like that, and then depending on the duration. But a lot of the times I don't focus too much on fiber because it takes up space in your stomach. It can make you feel fuller when you don't have any like caloric containing foods taking up space there to digest and absorb. Yeah. But like if I think about like the point to point and you've got 5 days, if you're pretty low on fiber, like, there might be people who might not poop for 5 days. Or how many days is it going to be this year?
Well, they're going to have 6 this year. Yeah.
So
Another day of eating.
Another day of eating. But there's some great ways, like I love like dried mango. Like that's a good source of carbs, got some fiber. It's lightweight. It's compact. So sometimes it's just finding, and someone might think like, oh, Dawn, dried mango is disgusting. Like, why would you eat that?
Delicious.
And that's okay. I really like it.
Speaking Mark's language.
Delicious.
Yeah. So some of those things, can be really helpful.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just depends on the person and what you want to be eating. But I think both of you kind of hit the nail on the head with like the variety piece and having a solution for a lot of these situations, whether it's cold weather during Margie or things freezing during Polar Roll, or I don't know, getting swarmed by mosquitoes with Crusher or other bugs.
Yep. Yeah. And how much time do you have?
8 minutes.
Okay. I will go back to what I said earlier, like when I talked about leaving with just 2 water bottles with Carbo Rocket and then taking no food and only finding food along the way. Or, I've done it the other way inversely where I had just water, no calories in the water. And then I really just had to entirely fuel off of real food.
Yeah.
Like, I really think that the more that you can think about different scenarios that you could end up in during an event or a ride, it's inevitable that something like that may happen at some point. So if you train it when it happens down the road, like for real, not in a training scenario, you're not going to freak out nearly as much as you would had you not prepared for that moment, because you're going to be like, all right, fuck, Ben here did this.
Yep.
I mean, I've gone out on winter rides with no gloves just for the sake of, all right, well, how's this going to go? How long is it going to go? What's the temp? Just stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just do the ride with no gloves.
Yep. And that's one thing that can be really helpful when you're thinking about water, like for Crusher, right? Or when you're looking at Polar Roll with water freezing, I always like to recommend people find a source of electrolytes that they can take in the absence of water.
Yeah.
Because if you're out here, you don't have water, right? And so whether it's, some type of capsule or some type of, something that you can take, without mixing it in water. So like electrolyte mix is, unless you plan on putting that whole packet of powder in your mouth, which I don't recommend. So that's something that I think is good across the board.
Yeah, for anybody that's planning to do Polar Roll, you better have either A, rock solid plan for your water not to freeze, or B, a rock solid plan for what to do when it does freeze. Or have both. Because that's a common one. People come up and they just end up getting crushed and cramped, and because they get out there and less than an hour in, their water's froze and they got nothing. And you're not catching up. If you get too far behind, if you get the bacon and hugs and you haven't had water and electrolytes, it's going to be a long day.
Yeah. And obviously I'm in a different spot on the course for like Mass Start for Polar Roll, because like usually see people when they come back into the high school. But I am happy to report that out of the last 2 Polar Roll Ultras, I only came into contact with 1 set of frozen water bottles. And
That's good.
And that was 2 years ago. That wasn't in 25.
Yeah, last year's when I think we mandated the stainless steel.
And I think that's why, because, and the person that came through 2 years ago with the frozen water bottles, they were just run of the mill plastic, not insulated.
All right. Anything else you want to share before you run here?
I don't think so.
Thanks for answering all the great questions. How do they get a hold of you if they've got more questions or they want to work with you?
Yeah. So my website is restoreasedietetics.com. There's a Book Now tab where they can schedule a free inquiry call. They can ask questions. They can see what it would be like to work together. I'm also pretty active in the Facebook page and things like that. So they can add me as a friend and send a message if that's easier.
Find her on the socials.
Yep.
She doesn't hide.
I try not to.
All right. Thanks, Don.
Thanks, Todd.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Over and out.